going to be going over the drive function checks of the 1911 and a few other things like measurements of the barrel length, twist rate, and checking for headspace. Let's get to the bench and get started. We're on the bench. We're going to perform a drive function check of the 1911 and then test her out with dummy rounds to go over all the cycle of operations, which are the cocking, feeding, chambering, locking, firing, unlocking, extraction, and ejection. 8 steps, but we're going to leave out the firing for the dry check. So we're going to make sure it's unloaded, nothing's in the chamber, and we're good. Now, what we're checking is just basic function of cocking, unlocking, firing, make sure the slide locks on an empty magazine, make sure she slides forward, make sure the hammer doesn't fall when you're pulling the trigger and not pressing the grip safety. Press the grip safety, make sure she shoots, make sure it locks back, make sure the safety works. Pressing the safety handle and trying to fire it, good. Now that has figured a passing, use the dummy rounds so we can figure out if the extraction works, the ejection steps, and the feeding and the chambering. So, then the firearm. Okay, then we loaded. What we're going to do is fire, and we're going to try and just reenact that, but not as fast, obviously. Okay, and then we're checking, make sure everything's locked. Good. Do it again. Good. And it locked back. Now, with the trigger, when I am feeling a trigger, you are slowly feeling for any play, and if it's a perfect slide to the wall and fire, what you're looking for, you want to hold the fire or hold the trigger down, listen for the release, and fire. Everything's pretty clean and smooth. A smooth ride all the way to the wall and firing, and it resets perfect. So to me, that's a good trigger. I mean, a bad trigger would be something grimy, you can't really time it. What you're trying to do is time it with your shot because you're expecting to fire the projectile, and the easier the trigger is to access with your finger and understand, the better the trigger is, in my opinion. So now we're going to go over measuring the barrel length. So what we're going to do is take this little jag, we're going to put it at the end, so we're going to put it through the breech face and get a measurement of the barrel. Go very slow, and it'll stop and you've reached the breech face. Take a little mark. There we go. So it looks like we got a 5-inch barrel. Alright, we are going to be measuring for twist rate. So, get our jag, put a little flag on the end of your handle. I'm going to put the rag and push it in until it hits the rifling. There. We want to make a mark right at the beginning. Push it down with the flag pointed up and let it turn. Look, it's about a 1/4 of an inch. Make your mark. Measure. about 4 inches. So 4 inches for a quarter turn. Multiply by 4 for a full turn. And you got 16. So your twist rate is 1 in 16. Alright, let's go over the Headspace. You have a no-go gauge and a go gauge. The go gauge is supposed to fit into the chamber, lock up like normal. And that's the correct measurement. Now a no-go gauge is, they range like 3 to 5 thousandths of an inch longer. And if a no-go gauge chambers and locks, that's when you want to start planning for evaluating the pistol, make sure it's safe, you get a new barrel, because things just get worn. And basically you take the go gauge, load her into the chamber, and you want to make sure that everything locks on it and closes. And you're verifying that there's no gaps in the seals, in the breech face, and it chambers, goes in, comes out. And now we're going to try a no-go gauge. Put that one in the chamber. You see how it leaves that little gap. That's what we're testing for. Make sure that it doesn't close on a no-go. Now I'll tell you, your chamber and locking system is safe. I'm sorry I can't go over the firing step, but basically the firing step, you're taking your firearm out to the range and you're going to go over all those dry steps first, and if it passes all of those steps, the last one is to make sure that all the gases is sealing, the projectile is moving the way it's supposed to, everything is moving and ejecting, extracting, firing, all of the 8 steps that we went over. You're putting it into action and making sure everything works the way it's supposed to, and once you're firing and no malfunctions happen, you're in business. You got yourself a good firearm. I'm Preston Thompson. Thank you for joining.